Welcome into ProBox TV's Deep Waters, Monday through Friday, bringing you all the boxing news. Very special show today. Why? We all know about the big fight. August 3rd, Israel Madrimov, of course, taking on Terrence Crawford. But in the corner of Israel Madrimov, Joel Diaz, he is joining us now. Thank you so much for your schedule, for giving us your time, Coach. The first thing I have to ask you, talk about your excitement level. You're not just training a fighter. You're training a fighter to take on one of the best of his generation, a guy with a very high boxing IQ. How do you like that mental challenge of coming up with a game plan for someone who's never been beaten?
Well, it is a very tough. It's a very tough task. You know, Terrence Crawford is, the best fighter pound for pound. Very smart, very well-rounded fighter. And I know him very well. I've been a big fan of Terrence Crawford, and it's an honor. It's an honor to work on a plan to beat him. I just think that, putting in some good strategy with a good fighter that has good discipline, like Israel Madrimov, it shouldn't be a problem.
Of course, you have great minds with us. Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. Of course, Paulie, you know what a big fight this is. When you look at Madrimov versus Diaz, a great matchup of minds. Paulie, what's your question for the coach?
Madrimov and Diaz is a great combination, man.
Yeah.
Madrimov's been doing great, and Joel, really want to congratulate you on the job you've done with Israel Madrimov. It's a fight we're all looking forward to. Obviously, you have had Crawford in camp when Tim Bradley was here. We've talked about this before. Can you tell us some? Obviously, you're not going to get into some of the details, but is there a lot that you take out of that, or was that too long ago?
I think Terrence Crawford at that point, he only had 6 pro fights. Now he's a mature fighter. He was barely coming up in his career. He had just signed with Cameron Duncan. He had 6 professional fights, but he's always been very athletic. Very smart. He's a great technician in the ring. And what I like about Terrence Crawford is, besides being a great boxer, he's very disciplined. He's very disciplined, very clean athlete. And has a lot of similarities with Madrimov. Madrimov is the same way. He's a very religious fighter, very clean. They don't drink, they don't smoke, never done drugs in their lives. Everything, they have a very clean life. And when it comes to boxing, they're 100% boxing. They don't cut corners. They're very disciplined in every way, in nutrition, in training. So it plays out for a good fight.
Yeah, Joel, so Terrence Crawford, obviously, he is what he is. You said he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But on top of that, he's the most diversified offensive fighter in the world today. Very, very difficult guy to figure out his style, because essentially you're fighting 2 guys, right? Because he can fight on his right side and he can fight on his left side. A lot of depth to his skill set. And I remember when I fought Manny Pacquiao, a lot of people were like, "Hey, what was so difficult?" And I said, preparing for him. What has the preparation been like? Trying to get the right kind of sparring? How do you prepare for a guy like Terrence Crawford, who, in the ring, he's like water?
That same question I've asked myself for every one of Terrence Crawford's opponents in the past, because I know it was very hard. It's difficult to prepare for a fighter like Terrence Crawford because you don't know what he's bringing to the ring that night. Either he's going to stand southpaw or orthodox. But the difference is that Israel Madrimov is the same way as Terrence Crawford. He fights lefty like if he was a right-hander, and that's what we've been doing. To me, it's not that difficult to put a plan against Terrence Crawford because they have a lot of similarities. They both dominate both stands really well. We've had left-handers, we've had right-handers, fast fighters. They have speed, fighters with experience. We have a little bit of everything so that we can be ready. There's a lot of teams, a lot of coaches, they prepare themselves for, one thing. We're going to go win. We're going to go do everything. We're going to expect plan A, plan B, and plan C against Terrence Crawford. You got to prepare for the best and the worst. So we know what we're stepping in the ring against. And it's not easy, but we worked on it. When we prepared for Manny Pacquiao with Bradley, it's the same thing. It's hard. You can't. And you know it because you fought. So you can't find similar sparrings to the guy you're fighting. It's hard. So you have to do it yourself. You have to simulate that type of a fighter. Even on the mitts, you have to simulate and program your fighter, to something similar that is going to step in the ring against.
What I'm very curious about, my broadcast partner, Paulie Malignaggi, says it all the time. It's a little bit of a cliche because, man, those Eastern European fighters, they're just built different. They have long amateur careers. They have a lot of international experience. As you know, as a coach, there's more than one opponent out there. There's the opponent, and there's the moment itself, the big lights, big fights. Only 11 pro fights. Does the experience of Madrimov in those amateurs, like Paulie's always talking about, does that prepare him, not just for the opponent, for this moment?
When he came to me from the beginning, when he came from Uzbekistan to India, he wasn't even a professional yet. He was very determined to turn pro, and he wanted to fight Jaime Munguia on his professional debut. And these guys have a lot of experience. They have a long career in the amateurs, international. This guy was Olympic, Asian Games gold medal champion. He has over 300 amateur fights. He's run into every single style out there. He has 100% discipline, and he's very uncomfortable. When you're in the ring with him, I mean, you as a trainer, as the average fan, can see a fighter and watch him, but it's different when you're in the ring with him. Believe me, he's so uncomfortable for any fighter, regardless who he is. And I know that, Terence Crawford is very skillful. He's very smart. And one thing I really like about Crawford is his confidence. He has a lot of confidence when he's in the ring. Confidence in the ring means a lot as a fighter. So we know that. We know that he brings a lot of confidence and he tries to break you down. Israel is ready and prepared for everything that Crawford brings, but it's not going to be easy for Crawford because Madrimov prepared himself really well. We touched a lot of points and some of the strongest points that Terence Crawford brings to the fight.
Now, Joel, you talk about the discomfort Israel Madrimov brings. One of the things that could come into play is the fact that Crawford has never fought at this weight class, right? So he's an ex-lightweight coming up the ladder, and this is his first fight, 154 pounds. Talk about the discomfort Madrimov brings just stylistically between a pace and an awkward style. But do you find that could be something that comes into play as well? The fact that, Israel is a 154 pounder. So matter of fact, so much so that he was looking to fight Munguia in his debut, like you said, while Crawford did turn pro at lightweight. Tell us a little bit about that, if you think that will come into play at all, or it could come into play.
Well, those who know boxing, like you, me, we know because we live boxing. We were boxers at one point in our careers. And you know what age does. We get older, and obviously he's not the same. We put in a lot of work in our bodies. Terence Crawford is a clean fighter as well. He's never had like really bad wars where he has a lot of wear and tear in his body because he's the technician. He's a very smart fighter. He picks you and breaks you with a lot of intelligence. But the trainings, every fight has a camp, and every camp is a wear and tear. He's 37 years old. Obviously, there's a lot of things in my mind that give me that hope on top of the training and the boxing plan that we have. He's moving in to 154. He was a great 140 pounder, 135, 140, 147. He's moving into a bigger weight class, 154. Madrimov is a solid 154. I mean, he walks around solid 174, 175, and with a good discipline and nutrition that he has. And we're going to see how Crawford's punches are going to make effect in Israel Madrimov. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see Canelo moving up to 175 to fight Bivol, and you see what happens. You know what I'm saying? So it's a matter of what they got for that day. The plan they got has to be followed as we worked on it. And Israel Madrimov, we just finished right now. Believe me, he gave me a lot of hopes, like he's been doing every day. He's giving me a lot of hopes that we're going to come out victorious that night.
Coach, I got two questions for you. One, I've actually called Israel one of his fights before, and I was really impressed with his athleticism. You know, you don't necessarily see that unless you look close into his style. But also we're talking about the mindset. So first question, speak a little bit about his athleticism as an athlete, not even just as a boxer. And then also I saw a clip where he was sparring with Dmitry Bivol. How much do those guys talk mentally in terms of getting ready for the moment? We spoke about the moment earlier. So if you could take and talk about him as an athlete, his athleticism, but also in terms of the mindset, and if he's reaching out or deals with Dmitry in that way.
Israel Madrimov'S athleticism is way beyond any other fighter out there. When he was young back in Uzbekistan, he decided to do gymnastics because he wanted to be flexible, help him for boxing. That's why he does backflips and stuff. He's very athletic. I mean, he does a lot of things that a lot of fighters don't do. Also, he's done wrestling, jiu-jitsu, like even when we started camp, started doing, he will come to the gym and do boxing, and then he will go and roll with some of the wrestlers and stuff like that. He's very athletic. He's a very athletic fighter, and I know that Terence Crawford is the same. Now, when it comes to discomfort with Madrimov, Madrimov, as the fight goes, he starts getting stronger and stronger. He starts finding those openings, and he takes really good advantage of them. I think that he's really smart, and if he catches you and he hurts you, he has a really good killer instinct. I know that if he catches you with a good shot and he hurts you, he's going to take advantage of it.
When you look at the opportunity in front of you, August 3rd, taking on a GOAT, one of the greatest of all time, you are the coach to do it, Joel Diaz. First off, thank you so much for your time. Secondly, best of luck August 3rd, man.
Thank you, guys. Hey, looking forward to it. It's a great fight for the fans. We're going to do our best so that people can talk about a good fight, regardless of what the outcome is. In the future, we want to hear those positive comments of good fights and not boring.
Well, you'll definitely hear it here on ProBox TV. We appreciate a great fight. We're looking forward to that August 3rd. Gentlemen, you heard it. What are your thoughts on the attitude of the coach? You guys know it trickles down from the coach to the fighter themselves. Probably the words of Joel Diaz. How do you feel about Madrimov'S chances, having heard his coach?
You know what? Nothing changes really. You expect a head coach to be confident, and in the way camp has gone, camps typically end on a confident high. And so, Joel Diaz has been through a lot of training camps, and he's an experienced trainer who knows how to bring the best out of a fighter like this. So, we expect to see the best out of Madrimov, and that's really why we've been excited about the fight, right? As it got closer, you started hearing less and less about the talk of Crawford, Canelo, and all this other stuff where they looked like they were kind of overlooking Madrimov. And now all that talk has kind of stopped as this fight gets closer, because I think the threat of Madrimov is starting to become real as the fight gets closer.
Are you feeling that as well, Chris? Kind of this creeping idea. This is going to be a tougher fight than a lot of people would think it would be on paper. The insiders know how good Madrimov is. Is that fair?
Well, I think anyone who's been paying attention to our shows, we've been saying that from the very beginning. That Madrimov is a very, very tough out for Terence Crawford, even as good as Crawford is. And Coach Diaz, he really just hammered home all of the things that I thought about Madrimov: his athleticism, his mindset, what he brings to the ring. What he's able to do, the switching the sides, the fluidity that he actually has as well. So this kind of conversation, just hearing Coach who's been in with him, gets me more excited for this fight. And I've been very excited about this fight because I thought it was a great matchup, and I really want to see what both of these guys can do. I always want to see what Crawford can do, but also I think Madrimov is a very, very talented young guy. And when you speak about that kind of the discipline on top of the experience, and these Eastern European fighters who come from a very, very different background, a very different lifestyle, I think it makes the intrigue of this fight that much more. So, man, I'm excited. I'm excited after this conversation more so than I was even before.
Well, we're looking forward to it August 3rd. But remember, this weekend, a heavyweight showdown, Chisora versus Joyce. The big question here is, how do you make money? Well, that's J-Rod in the better side.
Well, the heavies are taking center stage in London at the O2 Arena Fight night in the UK means early start for us over here stateside, and we got a good one. Old school heavyweight fight between the juggernaut Joyce and Derek War Chisora. Listen, this is kind of like a WWE loser leave town. Career on the line, really, for both guys. Joyce at 38, Chisora at 40. No titles on the line, but it is 12 rounds, and an interesting to see who gets to sit at the table and maybe get a trip to Saudi and cash in some of that turkey money for a big fight. So let's go to our buddies at sportsbetting.ag, and we got Joyce as the favorite, minus 450, while Chisora plus 325. Listen, no interest at all in that. So what is the better side of this? Well, Joyce is younger, he's taller, he's longer, and for 38 years old, he's only got 18 professional fights, while Chisora at 40 has got almost 50 professional fights. Chisora does love to eat up some rounds, and for Joyce, he knows he doesn't get paid extra rounds, so he tries to get things done quick. So what is the better side of this? Well, what about Joyce by knockout, by stoppage, rounds 4 through 6? That's 4-1, plus 400 at sportsbetting.ag. And for some reason, I've got the 5th round circled and targeted in this fight. So Joyce by stoppage in round 5. Are you ready? 12-1 on this. I love that. You just got to wonder how many more hits at 40 years old Derek Chisora can absorb. Listen, he has fought all the great ones. He's gotten Fury, Usyk, Dillian White, Joseph Parker. He's fought them all. But you just got to wonder if Father Time and Joyce is going to get him on Saturday night at the O2. So once again, I'm going to go Joyce by stoppage, rounds 4 through 6 at plus 400, and Joyce gets the stoppage in the 5th round at plus 1200. I'm Jim Rodriguez, as always, on the better side.
I'm not sure how much faith I have in J-Rod. The jacket looked good. It worked with the pocket square. I don't know about his picks this weekend, but the better side always delivers. Now, talking about another upcoming fight, it looks like not all of the undisputed titles will be on the line the next time Canelo Alvarez fights. Look, it's going to be Berlanga. It is going to be in September, Mexican Independence Day, but the IBF stripping him of the title for not fighting William Skull of Cuba. Now, contrast this with, of course, controversy of the WBC not stripping him for not fighting David Benavidez, who was the #1 mandatory for 2 years. Gentlemen, we know how it goes with the sanctioned bodies. We've been very critical of them before, but Paulie, respect to the IBF for doing the right thing and stripping Canelo, or does it take a little luster off the fight? It will not be for all of the titles at 168. What's your thought on it?
First of all, I think the titles don't really matter. I think Canelo is a big enough name that the titles don't really matter. So I don't think it takes any luster off of the fight between himself and Berlanga. I still think it's going to be a big fight. All Canelo fights are big fights. Having said that, it at least allows the weight class to get some breathing room and open up a little bit. Guys can start challenging for titles. Skull is a Cuban. I don't know a lot about Skull, but if he's a Cuban defector off to Germany, he's probably gonna have some wits about him and some good boxing about him. You add that to the fact that there are guys like Morrell and Benavidez, as we talked about, also in the weight class, and you could start mixing and matching some of these other fights. Listen, Canelo wants nothing to do with anybody who even has a remote chance to beat him. Berlanga is a guy who started his career very, very fast, very, very good, but lately has had a lot to prove. And don't get me wrong, he looked good in the McCrory fight, but there's still a lot to show. There's a big gap between McCrory and Canelo Alvarez, even this version of Canelo Alvarez. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think that's probably why Canelo picked Berlanga. At this point, you're better off looking a little bit susceptible. Maybe you can sucker him into giving you a fight, and then you get the payday. But I don't know that Berlanga has not yet shown at this level that he can win yet. And that's what we're really curious about. Is Berlanga of this level? He's dominated a lower level. He's at times even struggled against a lower level. He got his bearings back together, and he's ready for a higher level. But this is really, as much hype as Berlanga has had, this is really the fight where you see if he sinks or swims. He's been a popular guy. He's been a capable guy. But this is really an important fight for Berlanga as far as the way boxing will view him, if he's a world-class fighter or if he's just a guy who's a fringe contender.
Well, when you look at name value, you just said it, Paulie, that Canelo has it. Well, more name value, it looks like on the same card, Lara will defend his middleweight title against Danny Garcia. Now, Danny Garcia off for 2 years, coming up to 160 pounds. But Chris, when you look at it, when it comes to casual fan relevance, a lot of the casual fans will at least know these names. What's your thought on this matchup to go along with the Canelo fight?
Well, first, I want to touch on the Canelo situation with the IBF. I'm actually starting to tip my hat to the IBF because this is not the first time that they're starting to actually enact some of the rules that are supposed to be enacted by everybody. And it seems like the IBF is the first organization that's starting to take the lead in that situation. And in terms of this particular fight, and does it matter? I agree with you, champ. It doesn't matter. Canelo has elevated himself beyond just the titles. He's in these super fight situations now. And, fighting for all the belts doesn't matter. This isn't Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury, where all the belts matter. I had a problem with the IBF stripping for that fight. I do not have a problem with them stripping for this fight. I think it's actually a good precedent. And maybe if the terms are switched in terms of which one they strip first, it would be a different situation. But I do tip my hat to the fact that the IBF is now starting to enact the rules that should have always been in place. And in terms of Danny Garcia and Arizona Lara, I mean, as much as I was applauding the IBF,
it is a weird one.
Beyond that, as much as I was applauding the IBF for putting their foot down in a situation with Canelo and Berlanga, this is a step backward. We talked about Manny Pacquiao being able to come off the couch, a 3-year layoff, and jump right into a welterweight fight. Danny Garcia's been off for 3 years, and now he's fighting in a weight class he's never fought in, and he's fighting another older champion. Paul, you've talked about this before about recycling names to make fights that people are going to tune in for, and giving them titles and title opportunities where you're blocking out other contenders who are fighting tooth and nail to get up the rankings. I don't like this kind of stuff. Yeah, if you want to do a Guerrero and Andre Berto matchup on the undercard, yeah, it's not for a title. Whatever, put that on there. But even then, like
I didn't even agree with that one.
Well, I was going to say, then you're taking a spot on a pay-per-view card, but put it somewhere. You guys can fight. Go fight somewhere. But the fact that these guys are fighting for a title, granted, 160 is a barren weight division, but come on, guys, we can do better than this.
Is it, Paulie, your thoughts on it? Is it just about name value? You talked about, taking some casual fans, UFC's on the same night. You want those casual fans. Is that what we're seeing, as you said, the name value in a fight that doesn't tactically make sense to guys like us?
You know what, Jimmy, that's a good point. It probably is to try to attract some of the casuals because Canelo is probably not fighting a big enough opponent to maybe pull away some of the casuals from watching the UFC card. So you'll bring in a Danny Garcia and a Lara, but my sentiments are what the champ Chris Algieri said. And I stated this before. You can't be off of a long layoff. And Danny Garcia has had a great career. He's been a very good fighter. So has Erislandy Lara. Both have had tremendous careers.
No, they're both fantastic. Yeah,
but it's I'm just gonna say that, but because I have to set the point here. That doesn't mean anything here. That means absolutely nothing. That means, respect, round of applause. That's great, but it doesn't actually mean anything for the sport. It's helping their pockets. It's padding their pockets. It's giving them a spot on a big card. Maybe the winner gets one last big opportunity. I don't know, but really it does nothing for the actual sport. And again, I'm big on doing things for the sport and keeping the wheel turning for the sport and doing the right things for the sport. Putting stuff like this does nothing for the sport because you're, as the point the champ made too, it's not giving the younger guys an opportunity. And yes, I know the weight class is barren. I know that, but that doesn't mean you break rules and you let guys coming off of multiple year layoffs fight for a world championship. First of all, how did Lara? I don't even remember how Lara even got this title. Honestly, I remember him knocking out Thomas Lamana, and I remember he was maybe a regular WBA champion, which I don't even count as a real world title. But now he's got the real one. He's got a real. This is the mainstay, the main WBA world championship. So I don't know, man. It's an interesting phenomenon. I think it's going to get some people talking. Definitely the casuals. Yeah. But those of us that are here, I enjoyed watching Lara and Garcia. I did, but it's just not. This should not be for a world title. This should not be.
A very slick boxer.
It made me think though, because Danny Garcia, Puerto Rican, Edgar Berlanga, Puerto Rican. So we talking about when you mentioned the UFC and going head to head with them and trying to, and we talked about it on our air about trying to fill out that card so they actually have a competitive chance with the UFC. The only thing I can think of is, obviously we're doing the billing as Mexico versus Puerto Rico, which has always been historically been something that gets a lot of people excited. They have two rabid fan bases, and trying to get people. And we talked about this yesterday, Paulie, on a past show. Does Berlanga bring people to take that flight from the East Coast to Las Vegas? Yes, no, maybe. Well, add in Danny Garcia, his return to the ring, fighting for a world title. Does that give a little more incentive for these said Puerto Rican fans?
Now you're Puerto Ricanizing the card a little bit, so the fans have incentive.
Right. So you start stacking Mexico versus Puerto Rico. And listen, we haven't seen the rest of the card. If we end up having an all nationality clash, Mexico versus Puerto Rico, it's a pretty smart move.
Lara's Cuban, Chris.
Yeah, but certainly a lot for the Latin American base, right? It's going to be one of those fights that, as you said, people might travel out to see it. Well, hopefully, as the rest of the card comes out, we will talk about it Monday through Friday. ProBox TV, Deep Waters for the champs and myself. Have a great weekend.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, July 31st, ProBox veterans Alberto Palmetta and Jesus Sriracho return to battle it out in the main event. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.